All right, welcome everyone to the Rotary Club of Coronado's weekly Wednesday meeting. I want to welcome everyone, but I want to first start out to ask everyone to please refrain from using the facility's Wi-Fi on your phone because it pulls from the tech equipment. So again, welcome all the members and guests that are here today and all of our members and guests that are on Zoom. We're glad that you're joining us also. So as we always do, we start out with our invocation and pledge. Mike Johnson, please stand. And if you would please stand after we say the pledge and keep standing. This thing is...
All right. Thank you, Luann, and fellow Rotarians. This is not original. I found it online, but I really like it. So, Almighty God, as we join together today as Rotarians and friends, we acknowledge wherever we go, we're always in your presence. We pray that our actions may reflect this awareness for whatever our future will bring. If we must face disappointment, help us to learn patience. If we must face sorrow, help us to learn sympathy. If we must face pain, help us to learn strength. If we must face danger, help us to learn courage. If we must face failure, help us to learn endurance. And if we must face success, help us to learn gratitude. We must face prosperity, help us to learn generosity. And if we win praise, help us to learn humility. If we are blessed with joy, help us to learn sharing. If we are blessed with health, help us to learn caring. And as we stand before you today, help us also to learn the value of service above self. And may your spirit guide us all our days. Amen. All right, please join me in the pledge. Where's the flag? Ready, babe. United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mike. And if you can please remain standing. If you can't stand, that's fine. What I wanted to do was just take a minute of silence for those that have lost their lives in the earthquake in Turkey and Syria, for those that are hospitalized, for all those families that are seeking shelter, that are homeless, for all the first responders, for the medical people, and for those giving aid, and for the lives lost at Michigan State just recently. Please be seated. Okay, as we always do, the visiting Rotarians and guest, past President Dan Orr, come on up. Microphone is not.
Well, we're not sure who managed to find us down here, but I know one did. The director of the Ride the Point for all you bike riders from Point Loma Rotary Club, Jim Morrison. Where's Jim?
Hi, Jim.
Hi, Jim. I think that's it.
All right.
I think that's it. Did any other visiting Rotarians manage to sneak in here?
There are Rotarians right there from the
Oh.
Mexico Club. She'll introduce them.
Okay. Sharon will introduce them.
Yeah, what, Sharon, if you wanna get a mic to Sharon, she'll introduce all the people here. Okay.
President Luann, Dan, and fellow Rotarians. I'd like to introduce, first of all, we have an honorary Rotarian here today, and he's also going to be helping us with the presentation on Limbs of Freedom. And that's Herb Barrick. So Herb's here. We also have Joshua Pellets, who's also going to be part of our LIMS program. And we're really, really honored to have the charter member and past president of the Calafia Rotary Club in Mexico. And Lupita Creo. And we also have Marcelo Peles, who's with the club as well. and you'll see them later a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, Ivan. It's my guest, Max Marble. Max Marble graduated from a high school called Woodstock in India. He speaks fluent Hindi. He's my house guest. I love him a lot, so please give him a warm welcome. I will go introduce my.
Hi. Oh, I'd like to introduce my special guest, Rena Clancy. She just did her Rotary one yesterday.
Personal privilege of a past president. I'd like to introduce Keith. I believe it's,
Thank you, President.
Oh.
Well, and
go ahead, Jerry.
fellow Rotarians, I'd like you to all meet my wife, Joey. We've been around together for a few years.
Now, I'm going to try and introduce Keith DeFiore, who's visiting us from wherever he's visiting us from. He's from all over, from New York.
President Luann and fellow members, I'd like to introduce my special guest today, Brenda Jones.
That's it.
Okay. No, we've got Jim Kaufman here. Jim.
We're done.
I know.
President Luann, fellow Rotarians and guests, I'd like to introduce my sister, Torkin Wakefield, who is visiting from the frozen North Florida, Colorado.
All right, I think we're good then. We have everyone and welcome. So next, as we always do, just have our red badgers stand up so that everybody gets used to them. And as I always tell everyone, please, after the meeting, if you don't know them, go up and say hi and introduce yourself. So we've got Jerry Brown. There's Jerry there. Georgia Farrell. There's Georgia. She's doing the mics. Ronnie Hostler. There's Ronnie. Joe right here, Malloy, that's doing the tech. Arlene Inch, right here. Mike Jensen, that was just up here before. And Cheverton. Sarah's right there. And I don't know if I think I've got everyone. So we're good there. All right, announcements and announcements slide. And before I do that, everyone, when you have a birthday this year, receives a Rotary birthday card, so we don't miss anybody on their birthday. Other than today, every once in a while, we have people that come to the Wednesday meeting who actually is celebrating their birthday on the Wednesday of the meeting. And that's happy birthday to past President Dan Orr and Craig Blakey that's here today. So happy birthday to both of you. It's your birthdays today. Okay, so the announcement flag, the flags on the avenue is this coming Monday, February 20th. You meet at Orange and First at 7 a.m. and then the flags go down at 4. The Board of Directors meeting will then be the next day, Tuesday, February 21st. We will have a March social at Virginia Bear's house this year, and that is on Tuesday, March 9th. Golf tournament, Friday, March 31st. I believe if you want to sign up, there still have some openings. And until the 21st, it's $250. 28th, I'm sorry, it goes up to 300. So sign up for that. And there will also be, as we get closer, volunteer opportunities for that. And then put on your calendar, Saturday, April 29th is Rotarians at Work Day, which is worldwide. And I might say started with our club with Bob Watson, which is amazing. So that is, that's that. Then we have our Rotarians out and about. And so we've been busy. The first one is the monthly social. And I can tell you, thank you to Doug St. Dennis. It was her house. I think we had at least 60 people. And if nothing else, that shows you what Rotary stands for in fellowship, because it was a great night. And then I have to point out again, there are Bring your own cups. We're getting away from the plastic, and I think it's a habit that everybody is really starting to do that. Then the next slide is, Pat and Debbie made it to the Super Bowl, and of course I know. So I think he has something that he wants to present to us after having to listen to this for, I don't know how long, a long, long time.
On behalf of all of you all putting up with me for the last 4 weeks, I am pleased to give the Coronado Rotary a check for $500.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Pat. And the good thing about it is we do not have to hear about the Chiefs for an entire year. So that's a plus on that one. And I think actually this helped pay for some of the fines in the future. So thank you so much for that. And then the next slide we have is our racing queen. There is Kit Williams. She made the Union Tribune on Monday. And I do have to ask, that person to your left in yellow, that doesn't happen to be a new uniform for Richard, right? No. So at least you have good company on that run. All right. So the next thing is in today's Eagle, two things. There was a really nice article at the City Council for Susan Stone on her wonderful, what she's given to the hospital here in the community. So it was a great celebration for her. And then also for, in the paper was Mike Wywoody's picture with the Chambers with their military annual ball that is coming up. So that's out and about. Then the next thing that I wanted to do, I have to find it here. So today, it's my honor, it really is, to honor, we're presenting the 2023 Coronado Rotary Peacemaker Award to Limbs of Freedom. The Peacemaker Award recognizes individuals or organizations that have made a significant difference in promoting goodwill, understanding, and peace initiatives while exemplifying the Rotary ideal of service above self. And it's my honor to present Sharon Raffer. She come on up. She is the chair of the Peace Committee to present the award.
Limbs of Freedom is a joint international project that began more than 20 years ago with the Calafia Rotary Club of Ensenada, Mexico, and the Rotary Club of Coronado, USA. In cooperation with the Mexican Government Family Health Group in Ensenada, the Rotary clubs support volunteer doctors and technicians who evaluate, fit, build, refit, and adjust prosthetics for those in need. The volunteers staff several weekend clinics yearly where new patients are fitted with Limbs for Freedom. To date, more than 1,000 prosthetic limbs have been made. Our Coronado Rotary Club Peacemaker Award recognizes this incredible team in a project that's making such an important humanitarian difference. In a few minutes, you will see a slide presentation that will take you to the front lines of Limbs of Freedom with glimpses of its history, its present and future, along with photos of some of the people you may know, all of whom are part of the team that makes LOF possible. I'd like to recognize and thank particularly our major donors, Ron Vernetti and Jerry Winter, for all their support and inspiration. Thank you so much. And now I'd like to invite some of the Limbs of Freedom leaders to come up to accept our award. They represent so many of you who have helped with this worthwhile project. The actual Peacemaker Award will be placed at the Ensenada building site. Once the plaque is at the site, we will be sure to share photos with everyone. We'd like to welcome, and we're so glad that this person is here, from the Calafia Rotary Club, Lupita Creo, who was a charter member of the club, past president and past district governor. Imagine being in a Rotary Club where nearby far too many people who are amputees face a very difficult life. Add that to a club where its members recognize there may be a way of helping at least some of these people. Being people of action with leaders and doers, the Calafia Club joined with the Coronado Rotary Club for Limbs of Freedom. We're honored to have Lupita with us today, and some of her members are on Zoom as well. Dan Gensler, past district governor and past president. Dan, along with a committed group of Coronado Rotary leaders, helped to make Limbs of Freedom a reality, bringing hope to amputees for a better life. Dan? Dr. Bob Spear, Coronado Rotary's Limbs of Freedom chairperson and project leader for the last 17 years, has been leading Limbs Camp weekends and connecting with the team at the Ensenada site. Bob? Herb Barrick, board certified in prosthetics and a Coronado honorary Rotarian, leads the incredible team of technicians and doctors. Herb is considered a rock star by both clubs. And Dr. Joshua Peltz, working with Herb and now developing 3D limbs with a mission of getting people back on their feet. Dan, would you like to say something, please?
I just want to say thanks on behalf of all of us who have had something to do with this. Bob stepped in when I was starting to become president of the club. So is it 16 or 17 years? It's been a long time that Bob's been in a leadership role. I want a quick story. You know, it's funny how these things work. Bob Watson, way back when, had said, you know, he really wanted to take this limb camp effort that Lupita and the club had done for just a couple of weeks and create a permanent structure and a higher deliverable to do this. So Bob orchestrated a meeting in which John Overham came down to Ensenada, and then he had Ophelia, who was a member of the Calafia Club, who was also there. She was an architect. And so him and Han looking at the lot and the idea of putting a fabrication center up. And so John finally, after a while of discussing this, told Lupita that if she would create the plans, that he would build it. Well, days went by, weeks went by, months went by, and I think John was finally, you know, getting I got out of that one. Well, suddenly what shows up? The plans. And how does John respond? Oh shit, now I have to build this thing. So in any event, John coordinated to get all of the materials down there with the help of the Calafia Club and brought a whole crew down. And inside of one day, starting before sunrise, ending after sunset, had built this manufacturing facility. And then Herb and I met through my mother. And Herb graciously said yes, 4 years ago, to actually do this, and has kept on with it all of these years. And so it's really been remarkable what Herb has done and what has contributed, because without Herb, this thing would not be happening. And then Bob's support in picking up the connection with our club, and Tim Cusick's help and through all that as well, and Jerry. It's just been a remarkable experience for our club. So if any of you ever get interested in doing some kind of humanitarian service, it's amazing what can happen when you just start the process and let the seed grow. So thank you all for carrying the load on this, and Lupita for the original thoughts of making this happen, and Bob Watson's contribution, and Josh, now what you're bringing to the new technology. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you all for the recognition to these gracious people who have put so much time and effort into this.
Okay, now we're going to have her. Yes, we should stand for them because this is the 20 years that they've devoted to this. And thank you all. Okay, now what we're going to do is have Herb's going to be up here, and he's going to give us a slideshow and give us a history. So we all kind of understand and know what Limbs of Freedom really is.
Thank you, President Luann. Thank you all, Rotarians, for your support. This project, Limbs of Freedom, has been an amazing project. And it's kind of interesting when you get into something like this. It's a bit of a commitment, and there's just a lot of things that go into keeping this project going. And just family responsibilities, and you set up a clinic at a particular weekend, and then just it's difficult to keep everything moving in the right direction, keep it alive. But it's also interesting that in giving, the gifts that we receive in giving are much greater than any weekend that is not necessarily it's not convenient. So over the years, these 20 plus years, it's been an amazing experience meeting, greeting the individuals in Ensenada that have benefited from our services. These individuals are so grateful. They're happy, they're grateful, and they want to go back to work. That's just their main purpose, is they want to provide for their families. And so that is all of your efforts here, and your continued support helps us help others cross the border in an international Rotarian effort. So thank you for that. I have some slides here that I'll run you through, just give you a brief history of the clinic and the beginnings of the clinic. I apologize in advance because I may not know all the faces in these photographs, but this is obviously the beginnings of the transaction, where Rotarians internationally have come together. The Calafia Club receiving our club here, Coronado Club, and putting together, as Dan Gensler was mentioning, the vision of putting the clinic together. Okay. And again, some important folks from the Calafia Club, the Rotary Club there, again, as we're putting this project together. Next. This is the land site that this is where the vision took place. The hospital that we work from is the DEEF. It's a Social Security hospital there in Ensenada, Mexico. And this is the property of the DEEF hospital. Next. Some early photographs. This is Ophelia here in the yellow. She was the architect early on. Next. Oh my gosh, I didn't recognize that guy. And this is the beginnings of the framing process. Go ahead, next. The framing, siding up, windows in, after some long, hard days of work, and putting this clinic together. There's Bob Watson up front, Dan Gensler, Ophelia. I'm sure you'll recognize many of others in that photograph. This individual up in the upper right, your upper right, is one of the, she was the director of the hospital during the beginning of the clinic. She is very supportive of, do you remember? Yeah, it's been a while, but she was super supportive and was also very instrumental in our clinic's survival and progression. Next. So finishing of the inside, we ended up designing a there's a workbench here. This bench is still, it was built like a tank. So this thing is never going to collapse or fall. it may be difficult to deconstruct it if it ever comes apart, but it's solid bench, and this bench has seen, if it could talk, it would have some great stories. But that's our main center of the work area. We built a machinery and equipment around that bench, dust collection systems, ventilations, and all of that to try to make the system work properly. This is an early photograph, obviously, of the group getting together for some fun. Next. Is Paco Carreo in the middle there, one of the he was instrumental and just a real tremendous support, and God rest his soul. He's not with us, but he was a great friend and just a great supporter, and as well as Bob. Lupita, you see that? So one other thing I wanted to point out, in the early stages of our efforts, we had teamed up with the Bar Foundation. The Bar Foundation was instrumental. They supported us with all the componentry and parts that we needed to produce the limbs. Tony Barr himself was a double amputee, bilateral amputee, and he had people donating the prosthetic components to him from all over the United States. We'd put our order in, he'd send everything to me, and we were able to produce these limbs at no cost. And the foundation is no longer in existence. Tony has passed. His daughter took over the foundation, and she actually appreciated our efforts so much that she sent us all of the remaining parts. This was, probably 7 years ago, and we've depleted and used all those parts. But that's a testament to our efforts and what everyone thinks about, what you all are doing with this project. But Bar Foundation is no longer supporting. So your support is, again, is absolutely appreciated. This is just a couple of photographs of, the several individuals that have received limbs. We take multiple pictures after, each clinic, and just have a nice history of recipients. Next. This is Hector Flores. Hector works at the hospital, and then he actually came up to the United States a couple of times for us to teach him some of the technical skills. He's a really bright, intelligent guy, and just has done an amazing job at learning the skill. So he comes and helps us. He's got a job now. He works for the government office in Mexico, in Ensenada. I think he's back at the DEEF now a little bit, but he continues to donate his time. He's been a tremendous help over the years. Next. Okay. Some of the people here in the Patricia Hernandez next here. She's also instrumental in the current efforts and work of the clinic. Jerry Guzman has been an incredible partner. He's been with me since the beginning of this effort, and I thank Jerry because without him, I couldn't have done it. So him and Felix have been sort of the technical support that I need in order to do what I do. So I appreciate these guys. We have Boo Marquez, who's Felix's son. Boo has been with us again from the beginning, and is just, I couldn't do it without these guys. Jose Luis Garcia right here in the front, Felix on the right, you're right. But it's just truly a group effort. Next. And I don't know, this guy looks kind of familiar, but this is another person who has just been a joy to have around. He's great with his hands, and great with his mind, and he just got right in. Jerry, you got right in there and start helping us, and it's always a pleasure having you around. So thank you for that. That's the best one. I couldn't leave that one out. Next. So here's all the workings, in process. Next. A good shot there of all the processes in place. Now, this is a new building that was constructed for recently, and we all right, new building, and it's been a tremendous help for us to get the 3D printed stuff going. Yep. Some of the legs there produced. Made an arm for this gentleman. It's creative stuff people come in to see us with, and we turn that into something legitimate. But these are slides. Another patient, been a real help. This is the molding procedure that we do in order to fit the limbs. Take positive, negative molds, that negative or that positive plaster mold, and we have to vacuum mold. It's a process around it. Keep going. Basketball players when we're done. And now we have this new technology here where we're doing 3D digital scanning, creating, optimizing with the digital process, and then we go to 3D print. Here's some of the 3D printed legs that we produced. This is the latest version. And here's one of our patients thanking us with a little salsa dance, just impressing us with his ability. It's truly an amazing thing. So thank you all for your support, and I do appreciate your time.
Thank you to everyone. It's amazing. That's the prosthetic leg. I just want to say too that if you would like to donate to Limbs of Freedom, because it is our club that provides the donations, there is on our website at coronadorotary.org, there is a button on the right-hand side for Limbs of Freedom to donate. You can write a check, you can send it to the office, you can see Jamie. So it's very important that we support them for all the work that they do. So next, if Jean Marie Bond would like to come up and introduce our speaker.
Well, since this is Peace Building and Conflict Prevention Month for Rotary International, we felt that it would be important to have somebody, an expert, talk about conflict resolution. So we're very fortunate today to have the man who is the president of the National Conflict Resolution Center right here in San Diego. He's been there since 2003. In his capacity there, he has secured federal grants from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the U.S. Department of the Navy, and the U.S. Treasury to put on some of his programs. He's also expanded NCRC beyond just the United States into Europe, Asia, and Latin America. I actually knew him way back when he was at this part of the San Diego County Bar Association, a frequent speaker, and he was the co-chair of the alternative dispute.
Good. How are you doing?
Sorry. Okay, thank you. Well, we're resolving conflicts here. So fast forward a decade, and here he is at UC San Diego with the Galveston Campus Civility Program. And now today he's working right here in Coronado. And so without further ado, he is the consummate peacemaker. I'd like to introduce Steve Dinkin.
Thank you, Jean-Marie, and thank you to the Rotary Club. It's really such an honor for me to be here today. There are so many Rotarians that have been part of the National Conflict Resolution Center for many, many years, so there's a long history of connection. If you could maybe go to the first slide. So we've been around for 40 years, and I've been president for 20 of those years. And I have to say that today there's a heightened level of polarization, of dysfunction, of division, this sort of toxic feeling in the air. I think we all are experiencing that I've never really experienced in the history of being with this organization. I think it's a challenge for our society. It's actually good for our organization. The more conflict, I suppose, the better. But for the rest of us, we're working hard every day to resolve these issues. Next. There are so many types of societal issues that we're facing, a couple of years ago with the George Floyd incident and the race-based issues that came up in society that we're addressing. Next. We all remember what happened on January 6th and the level of political polarization that we still feel today. And with the impending presidential elections not that far off, we're going to face more and more challenges. Next. And this is a march dealing with the Asian Pacific Americans. And remember, with COVID and the issues that stemmed impacting the Asian community and how they were implicated in that, it's another way that our society is being divided through race and ethnicity and culture. So as an organization, we're working to try to address these most challenging issues in our society through conflict resolution tools, through communication strategies. And here are just a couple of the programs that we're focused on. The top two circles represent our School to Prison Pipeline initiative. And that is a concept where youth predominantly of color are finding themselves arrested and caught up in the legal system. And if they go through the traditional system, they end up in this pipeline to prison because with a mark on their record, a felony or a misdemeanor, they end up going back into the system and recidivating, and they become really a detriment to their communities and to the rest of the community and society. So we're working hard in the schools, number one, with restorative practices to keep youth from being suspended or expelled from school. If there's a behavioral issue, the idea is let's keep them in school, because the moment they're on the street, what are they doing but committing a crime? And then if they do get arrested, we have a partnership with the district attorney's office that rather than having the youth go through the traditional court system, what we do is we take the youth and we have a community-led diversion. And so we look at what are the underlying issues of why that youth is caught up in the criminal justice system. The kids don't just naturally commit crimes. There's usually some issue within them, some hurdle that they're trying to overcome. It could be substance abuse, mental health issue. A lot of times it's a lack of social connection. So we'll work with the youth, connect them to many different organizations throughout society. It could be an educational advocate, a mentor. And if they're able to successfully go through the program, then their record is sealed. So they won't have that felony charge go with them. So I can give you an example. As a young man that was in high school, he was a star football player, and that was his whole identity. Everyone liked him because he was a football player, but then he got injured and he hurt his knee. He couldn't play football anymore. And all of a sudden his life just quickly changed. And it started to tumble downwards. He started drinking. And at one point he took his grandfather's car and got in an accident. That's a felony. And he was just caught up in the system. So what we work to do is to connect him with other youth. We got him involved in some outdoor activities, a program called Outdoor Outreach into mountain climbing. And all of a sudden he found a new identity and we got him on the right path. So we have 25 people working on that project. We also are doing a lot of work on college campuses, trying to look at individuals who maybe come from different cultures, ethnicities, and create a more sense of collaboration. Like on one campus, UC San Diego, there are 600 different clubs. You can imagine each youth in that club, they just stay within their own club, whether it's a club of African Americans or Latinos. And our idea is like, let's get them to break out of their clubs and start to interact with each other. Let them talk with each other, let them disagree, let them argue with each other, but do it in a respectful way. That's what we need, is to teach that level of respect. And then we also have a Path Forward initiative where we're dealing with all these divisions in society. Thanks. So with all of our work, interesting enough, we have a strong connection to Coronado, and it goes back many, many years. I know many of you remember the tailhook scandal where there was a female lieutenant that was sexually attacked in that during that conference. So the Navy hired us to try to change the culture of this type of sexual assaults that were occurring on a regular basis within the Navy. And so how do you change the culture? What we did is we introduced something called the Bystander Challenge. Next. The Bystander Challenge was designed to teach everyone in the Navy, when they saw a microaggression, before it really escalated to discrimination or to an assault, to intervene at that moment. So everyone in the Navy was empowered to stand up when they saw action that was inappropriate. So that's what it means. It's to become not just a bystander, but to become an upstander. And when you see an inappropriate action, do something directly, like say, you know, that really made me feel uncomfortable. You know, how is that impacting our unit? Or you could distract in the moment and stop that action from occurring. You don't want to embarrass the individual. You'd have a conversation with that person the next day. But it's this technique of teaching everyone to become an upstander, to be empowered to make a change. So we started that with the Navy, and we went to the Pentagon to explain that process and that training to the Pentagon. And now, the next slide, that same training that we developed with the Navy, we are now implementing in many different companies across the United States. In fact, with the Toyota Corporation, we were brought in to do this very training for 30,000 of their employees across the entire United States. Next slide, please. I think many of you are also familiar with what happened at the Coronado High School about a year ago. This is another program how the National Conflict Resolution Center is connected to Coronado. There was an incident with the basketball team. They were playing Orange Glen. These were student athletes from Escondido. At the end of the game, there was a tortilla throwing incident where a number of the basketball players were actually throwing tortillas at the Hispanic students from Orange Glen. And it was really a very challenging situation that happened here, but it's not unlike what's happening in many different communities across the country and across the region. And what's interesting enough is that all of these societal issues, these divisions that we're feeling, seem to be concentrating within our schools. And I think it's the schools are the heart of the community, and the societal pressures are impacting the schools, and it's filtering down to the teachers and to the students. So in the aftermath of this incident, we were brought in and we developed a training called the Art and Science of High Performance Teams. You go to the next slide. You're right. There was an adult from UC Santa Barbara. That's absolutely correct. There was an adult that came from UC Santa Barbara who was a former student there, and there is a tradition of throwing tortillas up in the air at UC Santa Barbara, and that person passed out the tortillas to the students and to the fans, and this is what happened. And so as a result of that, we were brought in to work with the teachers and the students in what's called the art and science of high performance teams. And the idea of that training is that we focus on what is it, the meaning of being part of a team? Like, how can you be part of a team? And then we get to these underlying issues of what's called like othering and belonging. Like a lot of people, if you see someone that might look different than yourselves, you would other that person, like push them away, not make them part of your team or communicate with them. And so the idea of this training is through the concept of the team, we can get at some very challenging issues, some psychological issues, some cultural issues, so that the students are more open to learning those types of concepts. So we train the basketball team, and now it's mandatory that all of the spring athletes at the Coronado School District go through this training of the art and science of high performance teams. And our idea is that we can take this very same training and bring it across the whole region. And we're working with the Padres. A couple of the baseball players are going to do some videos that we'll be able to incorporate into that team, into this training. Next slide, please. So this is what we're really doing across society. We're working with youth, with college age students, in the workforce, in communities to try to change and influence how people can deal with and address the types of conflicts that we're facing in society. And I feel, starting to work with the young students, that's really the place to begin, because I think their beliefs, they're not set in stone. And so, the earlier on that we can work with people, I think that's our best chance to change and improve and create more collaboration. So I think that it's so interesting that our work really aligns so closely with the Rotary Club. I've been looking at the 4-way test, and a lot of these principles, it's exactly the same types of principles that we incorporate into our trainings. And I think that's why we've had such a long history of Rotarians being part of our organization. So with that, I thank you very much. And I'm open to any questions you might have.
Steve, what
Yes.
do you, how much, my question is, what is the role of fatherless families have in your bailiwick of solutions?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, because especially as if you're referring to the school to prison pipeline, we're now dealing with 500 youth that have committed crimes across the entire county. And if you go deep into their families, a lot of the issues really start with the family. I mean, many of the families where these kids are coming from, they don't have support. Their fathers aren't there, or their mothers aren't supportive. So what we try to do is to fill that void with other types of programs, with a mentor, with other types of programming, so that even when the youth graduates from our program, they're still supported and remain on the right path. So that is probably the number one challenge, is that a lot of these issues really start within the family.
Thank you for that presentation. You mentioned diversion. We had that here in Coronado with the police. You're probably familiar with that.
Right.
I was on the board for that as the civilian person, because we had a police officer and then we had a lady that was the mediator for it. And it was a great program, but we don't have it anymore. I wish we could get it back. I don't think we have it now.
So the police diversion is even before, sometimes before the arrest occurs. Our program occurs once there's been arrest before the charge. So we're able through our juvenile diversion initiative to have youth come from Coronado from any point throughout the country, throughout the region. But in terms of your program with the police, I think it would be great to have that reestablished. I mean, it happens police department by police department.
Well, actually, the people had been arrested. We had everything from smoking dope to shoplifting to all kind of stuff. But it was so effective. I just got to say, the people would come in and they had to bring a parent. I guess they still have that.
Right.
And we would interview them and the parent. And I felt like oftentimes this kid is hopeless. And then we would send them to diversion to, well, where's Georgia? Here she is. We'd send them over to now Safe Harbor for doing service and all kind of stuff. They would come back and I was like they were a changed person. So anyway, it was just a thank you for a diversion. So yeah.
I appreciate that. Yes.
Thank you very much. The tortilla toss incident, it was a big deal in Coronado, and it affected our Coronado High School team very much by taking away the championship.
No.
How should that have been resolved? How could it have been done better? It seemed like the school board was rushed to judgment. A lot of places rushed to judgment. How could that have been handled better?
Coronado is a small, tight-knit community, and I know the high school, everyone has a lot of respect for the school, and it's at the heart of the community. I think that's part of the problem, and there's this moment of heightened tension, and I think sometimes people do overreact in that situation. Maybe that is possibly was the case, but this type of training that we're doing, I think is the best approach. It's early intervention. So what the school district is having us do now is to train the spring athletes. It's mandatory before they even start playing. And so I think it's this preventative approach that might prevent that type of issue from ever happening in the first place. So my suggestion is let's do early intervention so that we don't ever have to address these types of issues. Because once it does come to light, it's these political pressures, there's people do rush to judgment. And so I think the way to avoid that is this early intervention. Okay.
How many people do you have that are actually the facilitators or the moderators for this? Are you a large group? Are you covering a lot of geographic territory or what?
So with the school to prison pipeline, we're in every corner of the county, from Coronado to El Cajon to Escondido, and we have 25 full-time staff working on this project, and then we have 55 subcontract organizations that participate in the program. So if there's a youth that commits offense up in Oceanside, we have groups up in Oceanside that are working with the youth, so they don't have to come down to South Bay for service. So it's all place-based. And then with our training, we have about 50 trainers that we're working all over the country. And with Zoom now, it's easier for us to train, across the nation. So overall, we have about 55 full-time staff at National Conflict Resolution Center, about 35 part-time trainers. So we're close to 100 people.
Steve, thank you. And like I said, thank you so much for some of the sessions that you've put on via Zoom. My question is, I know you used to train, have volunteer training for mediation and that kind of thing, conflict resolution. Are you still doing alternative dispute resolution? Are you still doing any of that training?
We still conduct, I didn't really get into the mediation side of our organization. We do a lot of training And then another part of our organization where we have professional mediators and volunteer mediators that are dealing with community conflicts and other types of business matters, real estate, probate. But we do still have a twice a year mediation training, and people are interested in volunteer mediation can take that training at no cost. You don't need a law degree to become a mediator. There are many other types of specialists, like, for example, if there's like a soil issue, sometimes we have soil scientists that become mediators to deal with like the erosion issues on the beach, if that becomes a conflict. So attorneys are the most typical, but we also have HR specialists and different types of engineers that become mediators as well.
We have your web address so we can get more information.
Sure. Well, also, if you just go to National Conflict Resolution Center and type that in, our website will come up and it has all of our programs, and we're always interested in doing work in Coronado because of our long history and our long history working with the Navy. So if any issues come up, you can go to the website and there's a lot of contact information. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So I want to thank Steve. That was extremely interesting. So next week, we're back at the Coronado Yacht Club, and we're going to listen to Coronado's new Director of Recreation and Golf Services, Tim Farner, and he's going to talk about all of that. So everybody go have a great Rotary week.